Hey, it's Alexa. A few months ago, I was interviewing beginner web developers for basic HTML, CSS, and JavaScript knowledge. When I asked them a question like this regarding DOM manipulation, I was surprised to find that very few of them could answer it. A few even produced answers that resembled React code. At this point, I realized there is a big knowledge gap amongst these beginner developers, and I think the hype around frameworks is to blame. Web frameworks provide us with powerful tools, optimizations, and abstractions that make coding complex applications much easier. But relying too heavily on frameworks right from the start is problematic. When you go onto the legacy React docs, not even the new ones, there's this small paragraph that says, make sure you have a familiarity with JavaScript and HTML before you start this React tutorial. And I think they need to include this on their new docs and make it bigger because a lot of people ignore this. As a beginner, you hear React solves complex state management problems, but you've never experienced these problems in your own projects. How can you even appreciate the problems a framework solves if you haven't even experienced them yourself? You need to see for yourself how annoying DOM manipulation and CSS styling can be before you jump into a framework like React or Tailwind. As well, if you don't have a deep understanding of the problem, you can easily be misled into over-engineering projects. The truth is, most projects don't need React or another framework. I find that when beginners use React in their projects, it slows them down, it leaves them frustrated and confused because they don't really understand what they're doing, and whenever they want to do something creative, they can't because they don't understand the underlying HTML, CSS, and JavaScript that are the web. My full stack portfolio site doesn't use React because it doesn't have a complex UI. It's just links to other pages with static text. Now, if you're building the Facebook app, then yes, you probably would need to use React. The point of a framework is to solve pain points and make development faster. As a beginner, your goal shouldn't be to ship products fast, though. It should be to learn. And this doesn't mean you shouldn't share or get feedback on your projects that you make as a beginner. It just means you shouldn't rush the learning process. Once you have a grasp of the fundamentals, you can gradually introduce frameworks into your workflow. When you immediately jump to a framework, what you're doing is capping your growth as a developer. What if the framework can't solve all your problems? And this happens more than you think. In companies, they have to create their own internal tools because the frameworks they're using don't meet their business needs. And in order for you to make optimizations of your own for your product or even company, you need to understand the underlying concepts of the web, how the internet works, HTTP, JavaScript event loop, and you don't even have to go that deep into these topics to see that benefit. Personally, I started with Bootstrap very early, and this is something I regret because when I wanted to add specific styles to one of my sites, I had trouble because I was used to relying on the library. Frameworks come and go. YouTuber Kevin Powell describes how jQuery was the biggest thing until it wasn't. And what you basically need to do is to learn a language, not a framework, because frameworks could be gone in a few months, but JavaScript is, for the most part, staying for a while. I kind of feel fortunate that when I started web dev, I wasn't aware of JavaScript frameworks. I had this great teacher in high school that taught us the fundamentals of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And I remember building my first website without using client-side JavaScript at all. This isn't meant to bash beginners, it's rather to validate their confusions or shortcomings, because the truth is it's hard to learn web development. The ecosystem is so vast, it's ever growing and changing, and it's hard to pick the right thing to focus on. One of the best resources I can recommend for web developers is the MDN docs. Every time I visit that site, I feel like I learned something new about JavaScript or web dev in general. And I would say getting an intermediate proficiency in HTML, CSS, and JavaScript can take you much further than you think. So hit that like and subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next one.